I have seen men die in a vacuum, lungs collapsing faster than their minds could accept. Pressed myself against torn hull plating, holding a breach with nothing but my body until welders arrived. I thought I knew what impossible meant. But the first time I entered the Atrian
quarters, I learned that impossible has another face. Silence.
Step, as though the walls themselves were deciding if I belonged. The summons came on a triple-tone priority.
An Atrian engineer had collapsed, core resonance failing, and I was the closest responder. On Harmony, humans never entered Atrian space without cause. That day, the cause was undeniable. Crossing the boundary was like stepping into another world. Gray steel gave way to prismatic walls that scattered light into living rainbows. The air refused to carry them. At the chamber's heart lay Rice, as cut glass. Now his glow was dim, stuttering like a dying star. In violet hues, they looked at me with faceted eyes that reflected my face in fragments. One warned me to stay back, claiming my body heat would disrupt the lattice. But their caution did not change the truth. Rice was dying. A medtech, pale with fear, passed me a resonance scanner without letting her hand touch mine. I set the emitters and watched the projection form above his chest. What should have been a flawless web of crystalline filaments was collapsing. Segments pulsed red, slipping out of rhythm. For humans, it would be cardiac arrest. For Atrians, it was worse. The dissolution of self before body. I asked about stabilizers, but she admitted they had already been tried. Core contact, she reminded me, was forbidden. Elder Ithrel echoed the warning, declaring that for a human to touch the lattice would be a violation no Atrian could forgive. Rice convulsed, light dimming further. My scanner flooded with cascading errors. No non-invasive tool could stop it. Only direct resonance, contact, offered a chance. I opened comms to the bridge, reported the collapse, and told Captain Serrano there was one option left.
She asked if I understood the consequences. I did. But the
alternative was letting him die in front of his people. The elders murmured like cracking glass, but I ignored them. Rice's arm still bore the sharp glyphs of his rite of engineering. Twitched, searching until it closed around mine. The chamber froze, crystal against skin. His light trembled at the contact, as if part of him had been waiting for it. I understood then that this was not only my decision. I asked silently if he wanted this. His glow pulsed, yes. I stripped off my gloves and pressed my palm to the cold facet above his sternum. Heat bled into the crystal. The scanner spiked. His body convulsed. The elder's harmonics broke in alarm. I steadied my breath, forcing rhythm into chaos, offering myself as a metronome. Serrano's voice cut sharply through the comm, warning that once I crossed, no protocol would protect me. I whispered that I understood. Then his light surged up, my arm, burning through flesh and bone. My vision fractured into prisms. For one suspended instant, I was no longer touching him. I was inside the hum that kept him alive. The elders cried out. The scanner shrieked, my palm seared.
With fire. And Rice lattice pulled me deeper.
Light that rang like 1,000 crystal strings vibrating out of tune. Each note pierced me until I realized they
were not random. They were memories. His memories. The first struck like sunlight refracted on water. He stood in a vast Atrian reservoir, condusts arching like a glass cathedral. A taller figure touched his chest and sang a chord that passed through us both. The meaning carried without words. Trust the lattice to trust you. The vision shattered into another. A corridor on Harmony. Human steel fused to an Atrian prism. His tools clinked, ozone lingered, and his clean
laughter dissolved bright salt on my tongue. Shuddered, alarms blare, dampers failed.
Forced the conduits in place as his lattice unraveled. Duty, carved into light. Is no one-way bridge. He felt my heat, my flawed body, my heartbeat hammering like a drum. Curiosity cut this through his pain. He reached for it. Against regulation, I reached back. I urged him silently to borrow my rhythm. My breathing slowed, my pulse steadied. He caught fragments of the beat. His lattice echoed it, not healed but held. The fissures were worse up close. The scanner outside screamed alarms, but here I could see filaments splitting. I shaped my breathing, long, steady exhales. He matched me, his glow threading toward mine. Together we coaxed one filament back, then another. Relief flickered at each correction. He sent me an image, hands too near a kiln. He warned I was burning. I answered that it didn't matter. The fire in my palm was real. But so was his survival. Piece by piece, the lattice stabilized. My body shook, sweat stung my eyes, but his
Glow brightened.
identity. I had no right to touch it. I paused, demanding consent.
We pressed together. Resistance clenched, then softened. Filaments realigned.
Too near a kiln. He warned I was burning. I answered that it didn't matter. The fire in my palm was real. But so was his survival. Piece by piece, the lattice stabilized.
His glow brightened. Then we reached the seam.
Their identity. We pressed together. Resistance clenched, then softened. Have stopped. But something lingered, an aftertaste in the resonance, sharp. Seen the spectrum months before, when Dock 5 was scarred by a cutting beam. We logged it as sabotage. Then, the same signature pulsed here. This had not been an accident. Someone had turned the drill into a weapon. Fury surged through him, his glow tightening like a blade. I forced the thought aside, begged him to hold it for later. And the world snapped back into sound and color. I opened my eyes on the floor, drenched in sweat. My palm smoked, blistered, glowing faintly with his residue. But held my hand. The translator hummed, rendering his first words, that I had stayed. I told him stubbornness was my first. The elders gathered, violet glow trembling. Ithrel lowered herself beside me, telling me the oath remained. But the line had shifted. I should have confessed about the signature, the sabotage, but exhaustion bound my tongue. I had stared only at my hand, glowing faintly, tethered to him. Serrano's voice pressed through my implant, demanding it would wait. Ricey's glow pulsed weakly but deliberately. We would face it, together. I knew then this was no longer just medicine. It was the beginning of something larger. Something that would test the fragile trust between two species. They sat me down before everyone I could disappoint at once. Captain Serrano, Holmes, Security Chief Naeem, Director Shan, and Elder Ithril. Belonged to. Rice was in a rest chamber under the eyes of engineers and elders. Atrians called that a promise. I tried to take comfort and failed. I gave the medical data first, metrics, stabilizer curves, recovery projections. Then the truth. During contact, I had felt a sharp spectrum, narrow and unnatural, identical to a cutting beam logged at dock 5 months earlier. Not malfunction, sabotage. Naeem matched my account against logs and confirmed it. Sean urged careful wording, politics always in his tone. Ikrel's glow dimmed to iron as she vowed her people would answer. Serrano reminded me that I had crossed a line both species had sworn not to cross. I told them it could become more than a violation. I urged them to formalize what happened, a protocol of volunteer pairs, human and Atrian, entering resonance with strict consent and limits, not scandal but bridge, a tool to save lives. Silence pressed down. Then Ikrel brightened faintly, declaring boundaries, no contact without consent, no borrowing without return, no gaze beyond healing. I agreed. Serrano weighed the risks and authorized a pilot program. 3 pairs. Rice and I would lead. We trained tuts, where steel met prism, in corridors belonging to neither side. Ikrel wrote human breathwork and rhythm. We practiced until 3 pairs could enter and withdraw without setting off their alarms. My hand still flared each time Atrian light touched it. Ricey called it a good mark. I think I learned not to stare at it. The test came unplanned. A micrometeor swarm brushed Harmony's hull, throwing Sector 7 out of phase. Lights flickered, grids stuttered. My comm shrilled Atrian distress tones. I ran. An apprentice lay slumped, glow thin. 2 engineers sang desperately, their harmonics breaking. Rice dropped beside him, mapping consent points. The apprentice pulsed yes. Had trained with us. She knelt at my side, counting my breaths. Rice placed his hand lightly over mine, guiding. Ithrel sang the grounding chord. Together we entered. Filaments trembled, then reached for our rhythm. We set them back one by one. Tamsin's count never wavered. Rice
Guarded the seam. Irel held us steady. We withdrew as promised. Breath, pulse.
to safe and held. Only then did I see the crowd. Humans and Atrians lined the corridor, silent. Even Naeem stood at the back. When the apprentice sat up, Naeem clapped once. A moment later, Sean's voice came shipwide, announcing Sector 7 stable and bridge pulse now authorized protocol under Atrian consent. Heresy had become doctrine. Later, in the med bay, the apprentice slept.
Rice and Vara debated technical details. Serrano joined me. She said,
We set them back one by one. Tamsin's count never wavered. Rice guarded the seam. Irel held us steady. We withdrew as promised. Breath, pulse, touch. The apprentice's glow rose to safe and held. Only then did I see the crowd. Humans and Atrians lined the corridor, silent. Even Naeem stood at the back. When the
Apprentice sat up, Naeem clapped once. A moment later, Sean's voice came shipwide, announcing Sector
7 stable and bridge pulse now authorized protocol under Atrian consent. Heresy had become doctrine. Later, in the med bay, the apprentice slept. Rice and Vared debated technical details. Serrano joined me.
She said she had told the council we were ready, and now we truly were.
I told her paranoia needed somewhere else to go, and work was better than fear. She nodded toward my hand. I called it annoyingly heroic. Rice said it meant I had given without taking. Days later, Naeem's quiet arrest confirmed sabotage. Someone with too many clearances, loyalty for sale. Sean gave me a report with blacked out lines and one acknowledgement. My resonance had moved security. Harmony felt changed. Not healed, but tuned. The silence of 8 other pairs volunteered. I watched human palms settle on glowing facets with reverence, not fear. When Rice stood beside me and I asked if he was ready, his glow brightened, joy sharp on my tongue. He answered that he was always ready. For the first time since stepping into Atrian space, I believed we had made something stronger than taboo and more lasting than doctrine.
We had made a way across.
Tomorrow would bring politics, audits, and new dangers. But we had a protocol now. I tightened the bandage on my hand, felt its faint warmth flare, and smiled into Atrian light. I tightened the bandage on my hand, felt its faint warmth flare, and smiled into Atrian light.